Your discipline builds your future. Welcome to Clartify.
Most people don't lose control suddenly. They lose it quietly. Not in one big moment, but in small decisions that don't feel dangerous at the time. That's why nobody panics. That's why nobody reacts. That's why life keeps drifting while you think you're still in charge. Control doesn't disappear. It erodes. And by the time you notice it, your habits are already deciding for you. You think control means discipline, force, motivation. It doesn't. Real control is invisible. It happens before the urge, before the excuse, before the negotiation even starts. But most people arrive too late. They try to control themselves after the impulse appears, after the phone is already in their hand, after the distraction already won. And then they say, I have no self-control. That's not true. You didn't lose control. You postponed it. The brain doesn't fail at decision-making. It follows momentum. Every habit you repeat becomes automatic, not because you chose it, but because you stopped interrupting it. At first, you notice. You feel the pull. You tell yourself you'll stop later. Later becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes normal. And the habit no longer asks for permission. That's how control slips away without resistance. Nobody wakes up and says, today I will ruin my focus. Today I will lose discipline. Today I will waste another year. It happens through default. Defaults are dangerous because they feel neutral. They don't hurt. They don't demand attention. They feel like rest. But rest without intention turns into drift. You scroll not because you want pleasure, but because your brain wants relief. Relief from effort. Relief from choice. Relief from deciding who to be in this moment. That's why distraction feels automatic, because it removes responsibility. Control always feels heavier than comfort. That's why comfort wins when nothing stops it. Most people believe their problem is weakness. It's not. Their problem is timing. They try to fight urges when the fight is already lost. Self-control doesn't happen in the moment of temptation. It happens hours earlier, in what you allow around you, in what you normalize, in what you don't remove. Your environment trains your behavior more than your will ever will. That's why disciplined people look calm. They are not stronger. They are earlier. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on systems that make bad decisions harder. Meanwhile, most people keep trusting future discipline. I'll stop later. I'll focus after this. I'll be serious tomorrow. Tomorrow never arrives disciplined. It arrives tired. Fatigue kills control faster than laziness ever could. That's why nights are dangerous. That's why discipline collapses after long days. Not because you changed, because your energy dropped. Control is not a moral trait. It's a condition. And conditions can be designed or ignored. Every time you allow chaos to stay around you, you're training future failure. Every open tab, every notification, every excuse you don't challenge. None of it feels serious. That's the trap. Small leaks sink ships quietly. You don't notice control leaving, you notice guilt arriving. And guilt is useless. Guilt arrives after the behavior. Control must arrive before it. That's why most people stay stuck in regret instead of change. They analyze. They promise. They feel bad. But they don't restructure. Real control begins when you stop asking, why can't I control myself? And start asking, what am I allowing that makes control impossible? The moment you see this, something shifts. You stop blaming yourself. And you start designing against your weaknesses. You realize something uncomfortable. Your habits are not accidents. They are permissions. Every repeated behavior exists because it is allowed to exist. Control is not about resisting everything. It's about removing access. You don't become disciplined by fighting temptation. You become disciplined by starving it. That's why people who change their environment change faster than people who change their mindset. Mindset matters. But environment decides who wins when you're tired. And you will be tired. Everyone is. The difference is what happens when energy drops. Most people collapse into defaults. Others fall into structure. That's not talent. That's design. Once control becomes automatic, something strange happens. Life feels quieter, not exciting, stable. And many people avoid that stability because chaos feels familiar. Chaos gives excuses. Stability removes them. Control exposes responsibility. That's why people sabotage it. Not consciously, but consistently. They create friction against discipline and call it freedom. But freedom without control is noise. Real freedom is boring at first because it doesn't entertain. It builds. You don't feel powerful when control returns. You feel calm. And calm is dangerous to people addicted to stimulation. But calm is where growth lives. If you feel like your life is drifting, it's not because you lack strength. It's because your systems are weak. And systems can be rebuilt. Not with motivation. With removal. Remove what steals attention. Remove what delays action. Remove what negotiates for comfort. Control doesn't come back dramatically. It returns quietly. One boundary, one restriction, one decision made early instead of late. And one day you notice something strange. You don't need to fight yourself anymore. Because the fight was never supposed to happen in the moment. It was supposed to be prevented. If you leave this video thinking about motivation, nothing changes. If you leave thinking about design, control starts returning. Most people will ignore this. They always do. If you don't, this channel is for you. If this made you rethink your habits, press like. If you want control back, subscribe. And comment, I move earlier.
Thank you for watching. If you're ready to upgrade your mind and build unshakable discipline, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. More powerful lessons are coming. Stay disciplined. Stay clarify.